Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1578B and today's date is May 28th, 2018 and the title of the episode is The Pieces Are Being Rearranged to Trap the Deep State. Now, before I get started, I just want to make a couple of announcements. I just want to wish everyone who is celebrating Memorial Day, happy Memorial Day. I also want everyone to know that I placed 2 interviews on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. The first one is with Bill Holter, and the second one is with Rob Kirby. And if you go over to YouTube and you type in X22 Report Spotlight, it will bring you to those interviews. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com or NewSentinel.com websites. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interviews right on the sites. Or you can go to Steemit, that is Steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interviews right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now let's head out to North Korea. As we can see, the summit, it looks like it's back on and preparations are still being made to have the peace summit. It looks like Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in of South Korea have met prior to the summit. And we can see this whole strategy was to trap the deep state, trap the corporate media in their lies. And they're the ones who continually push the story that Kim Jong-un wants to cancel the summit. He doesn't want to go forward with it. And the whole thing turns out to be fake, phony, and false as usual. Because remember, the corporate media, they use propaganda. They have the ability to use propaganda. They follow whatever the intelligence agencies tell them to do, especially Clapper, Brennan, the former intelligence agencies. They even have jobs with the corporate media right now. And we can see at this point that the summit is back on, and they're going to be talking about denuclearization, peace. And I do believe the letter that Trump put out there was not really directed to Kim Jong-un, even though the corporate media put it out there. He put it out on his Twitter feed. I think this was directed to the deep state and basically focusing in, saying, listen, we can do this the easy way, the hard way. How do you want to do this? And I don't believe that at any time was this going to be canceled. I think the peace talks already happened in the background. This is for the show. This is for everyone else, for the corporate media, for everyone to see what's happening. But if you noticed, Kim Jong-un followed through on everything that he was supposed to do, releasing the hostages, destroying the nuclear sites, all prior to the summit. So this is very interesting, but we can see right now that the summit, it looks like it is happening, and we're on that path now. The deep state, maybe they'll try something, we don't know. But again, it is on. We see right now that Russia, they're making economic deals with Turkey, they're making economic deals with Iran, they're making economic deals now with Greece. And we see a lot of countries, they sent delegates to the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. There were about 15,000 participants from over 100 countries. And we know that France was there, China was there, Russia was there, Greece was there, Turkey was there. Many, many countries were there. And we see that Greece was there to seek Russian cooperation on building ships. And it looks like they're looking to make a deal. We see Russia and Turkey, they have reached a deal on the construction of the land-based part of the Turkish Stream branch that will bring Russian gas to the European consumers. And we see right now that the European countries are moving closer and closer to the Russian-China economic system and moving away from the US-based dollar. Now, this is planned. This is being pushed because the dollar is dying. And it is moving all of these countries away from the dying dollar, the central bank dying dollar, which the deep state uses. We also see U.S. warships. They allegedly entered the South China Sea. This is all coming from anonymous sources, coming from the corporate media. And they're out there saying that the U.S. has the right to freely sail in these areas near the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. And we heard all this before during the Obama reign, where they continually sailed these ships over there, trying to provoke China. We also heard that Kim Jong-un was going to cancel the summit, which was not the case at all. And we see that the corporate media continually pushes out this propaganda to try to control the narrative, and most of the time it is completely fake, phony, and false. Now we see Syria, they are taking the next step. Remember, Assad met with Putin, and they discussed what was going to happen in Syria, and they were moving towards redoing the constitution. So the Syrian government, they have submitted a list of names to the United Nations as candidates for inclusion in a constitutional committee. And we see that de Mistura has said that he'll select around 50 people, including supporters of the government, the opposition, and independents, to make up this group where they're going to create a new constitution. Syria is on its way of reworking its political system right now, and all they need to do is get the foreign elements out of their country. And this is why Trump, way back, said, we're going to remove the troops from Syria. And I think this is still part of the plan. I think this is where it's moving, because we can see some hints, especially coming from Lavrov. Lavrov had made a couple of hints when he was talking about Syrian troops. Putin came out there and said that all foreign troops, even Iran, should leave Syria. Now, the United States, the deep state, they say we're in Syria because of Iran. And we can see that Putin is putting all the pieces together and making it possible for the U.S. to leave Syria. And this is what's happening right now. Remember, the deep state has control over this entire Middle East area. And what's happening right now is they're rearranging everything to make it possible to leave this area, where the deep state, all the arguments that they used before, they can't use them anymore. And what is happening here is Lavrov came out and said that the Syrian government should have troops on the country's southern border. And according to Lavrov, the de-escalation zone in the south of Syria was established to eventually withdraw all non-Syrian forces from the border areas. Now, this was the de-escalation zone that Trump and Russia agreed upon to bring peace, and they're enforcing it. And Lavrov is saying that the end game to all of this was to have all non-Syrian forces to be removed from this area. And this is where we are headed. I think the entire plan for all of this is to convince Iran to leave this area. Now, Iran's going to put up a fight. They're going to make it look really good. Putin's going to come in. The Russians are going to talk to Iran. Syria right now would have to ask Iran, okay, it's time to leave. And we see something very interesting happening right now. There are new reports of an unprecedented indirect talks being held between Iran and Israel. Now, what they're saying is that the Syrian government might ask Iranian forces to withdraw their presence from the certain areas in Syria and let the Russian troops take control of these areas. And I think this is the beginning stages of having Iran withdraw very slowly. I think Israel is going to back off slowly, and Russia is going to fill up the gap. The deal that was made for the entire de-escalation zone around all the borders, I believe this was made between Trump and Putin, where they're going to remove their forces and Russia is going to move and fill the vacuum here and control all of these areas. This is why Putin came out and said Russia will stay, Russia will control these areas, all other forces must leave. And this would allow the U.S. to leave this area. Because remember, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, the moderate rebels, and the rest, they're defeated. They're being pushed out. They're being bussed out, I should say, out of the country. The Syrian armed forces, they've been taking control of more towns, more villages, more cities. All the funding has stopped to the Kurds. All the troops there, they're not receiving the funding. The training to all the moderate rebels has stopped. The funding to the White Helmets has stopped. And we can see that everything is being stopped in Syria. Now, the only argument they had was Iran is there and we can't leave if Iran is there. Well, Iran eventually will be leaving. Once Iran is gone, There will be no more argument in this area, and the troops can come home. Then Iraq, as we know, they're going to ask the U.S. to leave Iraq. This is all being set up and put into place right now. Just like the North Korean talks. I mean, everyone was talking like Bolton is involved. He messed up the talks. We see the neocons are getting involved, and the talks have completely broken down, and there's going to be war in North Korea. No, we're having peace in North Korea. The Patriots are keeping an eye on what Bolton does. They're watching him very closely. He's put in this position for a reason. They're just not letting him go free out there to do whatever he needs to do. His statements are put out there. It's to distract the corporate media. And we can see already the plan has been working. The corporate media went with it. And they've been talking about how, North Korea is going to be the next Libya. The Libya plan is being put into place. All of that is completely fake, phony, and false. And we can see the peace talks are happening right now. Eventually, what's going to happen in North Korea is the South and the North, they're going to be unified. They're going to come together and work together. And we see behind all of this is Russia, China, and the rest. We see all of this happening right now. The next part of this is the Middle Eastern area. And I know a lot of people can't believe this, and a lot of people still are in the mindset that, no, we're going to be splitting up Syria. And the splitting up of Syria was the deep state plan. This was their plan from the beginning. They were going to split up Syria. They were going to split up Iraq. They were going to separate all of these Middle Eastern countries into Shiite, Sunni, Alawite, everything else. And they were going to separate everyone in the Middle East. This is not happening anymore. Yes, the deep state would still like this. They're still trying to push this goal. But we see that the pieces now are being completely rearranged for something completely different than what the deep state wants. And this is all being orchestrated by Russia. It's being orchestrated by China. It's being orchestrated by the U.S. And a lot of this is happening behind the scenes. It's hard to believe. It's hard to get a grip on all this because we've been stuck in that whole entire realm of the deep state pushing their agenda in these areas, and that's the only thing that we can see right now. But things are completely changing. We can see it with North Korea. I mean, we could have gone, if we were going to go to war already, it would have happened. And I've said this even when Obama was president with the deep state, when everyone was saying that Putin is pushing a war. If we really wanted to go to war, it would have happened already. Putin at every turn stopped the war from happening. If Trump was going to push us into war, he would have pushed us into war already with North Korea. Why wait? What would be the purpose of waiting? If we're going to war, we would have gone to war in Syria with the Russians. Why didn't it happen? If you noticed, all the reports of the U.S. hitting the Russian troops turn out to be fake, phony, and false. It's the propaganda outlets doing their job, pushing propaganda to make you think these things are happening when they're really not. If we were going to go to war, why wait? There's no reason to wait. We would have gone to war a long time ago. But every time the deep state tried to go to war, Putin shut it down. Right now, we're having peace in North Korea. Trump didn't have to have a peace summit. He could have canceled the whole thing, could have gone with McMaster's plan, send in 10,000 troops, gone to war. After he bombed Syria, we could have sent troops in. Why cut the funding? Why then cut all the funding to all of these different groups if we're going to separate Syria? It makes no sense. He's doing everything the opposite of what the deep state was doing. And it makes no sense to do the opposite of what the deep state was doing if you're going to follow the same path of the deep state. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why even call out fake news on the corporate media? That makes no sense either. Why even have peace in North Korea? Why write this whole entire letter saying the peace talks are off? Why do all of this? Why? Because the Patriots are fighting against the deep state. The Patriots are trapping the deep state. The Patriots are flushing the deep state out. And eventually what's going to happen is that the deep state is going to be cornered. And with every passing day, we see that it's getting harder and harder for the deep state. They're losing the narrative on a lot of their stories about Russian collusion and everything else. They're still trying to churn out new propaganda to try to, make a new narrative and try to gain the traction, but they are losing it. And what they resort to is what's called censorship. They try to shut down anyone that's speaking the opposite of what they want. And if they don't like it, they take down channels, they censor people, they arrest people, as we can see with Tommy Robinson, who is out in the UK, who was arrested. And we see that this is what they resort to because as we move towards the end game, they have nothing else left. And they still control certain parts of governments. There are still deep state factions out there. They still control the corporate media. Remember, they don't call them the deep state for nothing. They're deeply embedded in all these organizations. And there's a lot of individuals that back them. And we see right now they are definitely pushing their agenda, and they will do whatever they need to do to keep their narrative, to keep their end of the story so people believe them and not the patriots. But what I think is happening is they're losing this battle, and this is why they're going to resort to more censorship, more events, and more of what we've been seeing all along. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.